I got a call from an unknown number. It was my 13-year-old sister, whispering, "Melissa, help me." I asked where she was. Dad drove me to the desert. He took my phone and water, then said I wasn't his biological daughter, and left me there. I found an old woman's phone. She gave me the location, so I went to get my sister. And then I went to confront my dad. The vultures were already circling when I found her phone. 3 of them, black wings cutting lazy spirals against the bleached sky. I'd been walking for 6 hours through the Mojave, my lips cracked like old leather, my tongue swollen and useless in my mouth. The sun was a merciless eye, and I was dying. That's when I saw the glint of metal beneath a creosote bush. An old flip phone, the kind no one uses anymore. The screen was cracked, but it still had 2 bars of signal, a miracle in this wasteland. My hands shook as I opened it, partly from dehydration, partly from desperation. "Please," I whispered to no one, and dialed 911. But let me back up. Let me tell you about the call that started this nightmare. 24 hours earlier, I was in my apartment in Phoenix, grading papers and trying to forget that tomorrow marked 3 years since Mom died. The anniversary always hit me like a freight train, and this year felt heavier somehow. Maybe because it was also the first time Dad hadn't called to check on me. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Scammers love to prey on people at night. But something made me swipe green. "Hello?" Silence. Then, barely audible, "Melissa, help me." The blood in my veins turned to ice water. "Emma? Emma, is that you?" My 13-year-old sister's voice came through in fragments, like she was trying not to be heard. "Dad. He brought me somewhere. I don't know where I am. It's all desert and..." The line went dead. I called back immediately. Straight to voicemail. I tried again. And again. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. Emma lived with Dad in Tucson, about 2 hours south. They'd moved there after Mom's funeral, Dad claiming he needed a fresh start. I fought him on taking Emma so far away, but grief makes people do strange things. I thought he was just running from memories. Now I wondered if he'd been running from something else entirely. I threw on jeans and a jacket, grabbed my keys, and called Dad's number while I ran to my car. It rang twice before going to voicemail. His voice, calm and measured, "You've reached Richard Walsh. Leave a message." The same voice that used to read me bedtime stories. The same voice that taught Emma how to ride a bike last Christmas. The same voice that now filled me with dread. "Dad, it's Melissa. Emma called me. Where is she? Call me back right now." My voice cracked on the last words. I drove south through the night, pushing my Honda 10 miles over the speed limit, my mind racing through possibilities. Maybe Emma was at a friend's house and got scared. Maybe Dad was working late at the construction site and left her alone. Maybe this was all some misunderstanding that would seem silly by morning. But I couldn't shake the terror in Emma's voice or the way the call had cut off so abruptly. The desert stretched endlessly on both sides of the interstate, a black void broken only by the occasional cactus silhouette. I'd driven this route dozens of times to visit them, but tonight it felt different. Predatory. Like the darkness was swallowing the world mile by mile. I reached Dad's house at 2 a.m. Every window was dark. My spare key still worked, a small mercy. I let myself in, calling Emma's name. No answer. Her bedroom was empty, bed unslept in. Dad's room too. But something felt wrong beyond just their absence. The house was too clean. Dad was meticulous, sure, but this was different. The surfaces gleamed. The trash was empty. Even Emma's usual clutter of art supplies and school books was gone from the kitchen table. It looked like a crime scene that had been sanitized. I found Dad's laptop on his desk and opened it, hands trembling. The browser history had been cleared. His email inbox was empty except for a few work messages from last week. Even his photos were gone, hundreds of family pictures, just vanished. That's when I saw it. A yellow sticky note, partially hidden under a stack of bills. In Dad's careful handwriting, Desert Rose Motel, Room 7, tomorrow 3 p.m., come alone. My stomach dropped. Desert Rose Motel was a rundown place about 50 miles east, right on the edge of nowhere. Why would Dad write that down? Who was he meeting? And where the heck was Emma? I was back in my car within minutes, the sticky note crumpled in my fist. The motel was an hour's drive through increasingly desolate terrain. By the time I arrived, the sun was beginning to rise, painting the sky the color of dried blood. The Desert Rose looked like it belonged in a horror movie. Half the neon sign was burned out, reading Desert Arce MTEL in flickering pink letters. The parking lot was cracked asphalt and tumbleweeds. Only 3 cars sat in front of the long row of rooms. Dad's pickup truck was one of them. My heart hammered as I approached room 7. The curtains were drawn, but I could see a sliver of light underneath the door. I raised my hand to knock, then hesitated. What if this was a trap? What if Dad wasn't the man I thought he was? I knocked anyway. Footsteps. The sound of a chain being unlatched. The door opened 6 inches, and Dad's face appeared in the gap. He looked terrible, stubble, bloodshot eyes, like he hadn't slept in days. Melissa. His voice was flat. You shouldn't be here. Where's Emma? I pushed against the door, but he held it firm. She's safe. That's not what I asked. Let me in, Dad. We need to talk. For a moment we stared at each other through the gap. This man had taught me how to drive, walked me down the aisle at my wedding, held me while I cried at Mom's funeral. But the eyes looking back at me now were those of a stranger. Please, he said quietly. Just go home. Pretend this never happened. Like hell. I shoved harder against the door, catching him off guard. It swung open and I stumbled inside. The room was sparse, 2 beds, a table, a TV with rabbit ears. Dad stood in the middle, his hands at his sides. He was alone. Where is she? My voice came out as a growl. Dad closed the door behind me. Locked it. The sound made my skin crawl. Sit down, Melissa. I'm not sitting anywhere until you tell me where my sister is. Our sister, he corrected. And she's somewhere safe. That's all you need to know. Safe from what? Dad, you're scaring me. This isn't like you. He laughed, a bitter sound that I'd never heard from him before. You don't know what I'm like. You don't know anything. I pulled out my phone. I'm calling the police. No signal out here, Dad said. I checked. My blood went cold. He was right, my phone showed 0 bars. How had I not noticed? How had Emma called me from out here? Dad, what's going on? Why are you acting like this? He sat heavily on one of the beds, suddenly looking every one of his 53 years. Because I'm not your father, Melissa. And Emma isn't your sister. The room tilted. I grabbed the back of a chair to steady myself. What? Your mother never told you. I made her promise. But now. He ran his hands through his graying hair. Now everything's coming apart. I sank into the chair, legs suddenly too weak to support me. That's impossible. You adopted me when Mom and I moved in when I was 8. I remember, I never adopted you. His voice was gentle now, which somehow made it worse. Your real father. He wanted you back. And when your mother died, well, the agreement we had died with her. The room was spinning. I felt like I might vomit. What agreement? I keep you safe. Raise you like my own. And he'd stay away. But Melissa, your real father. He's not a good man. And now he knows where you are. I stood up too fast, the chair scraping against cheap linoleum. You're lying. You're lying and I don't know why, but you need to stop. Dad reached into his jacket and pulled out a manila envelope. Your birth certificate. The real one. With shaking hands, I opened it. There was my name, Melissa Catherine Walsh. But under father, it wasn't Richard Walsh's name. It was someone called Michael Torino. The world crashed down around me. Who is he? I whispered. Someone dangerous. Someone who's been looking for you for 15 years. And Emma? Not your half-sister. My daughter with someone else. Before I met your mother. Dad stood up, moved toward me. I backed away. Melissa, you need to disappear. Tonight. Change your name, move across the country. Don't tell me where you're going. You're insane. But even as I said it, pieces were clicking into place. Why we'd moved so much when I was little. Why Dad always paid in cash. Why he freaked out that time in high school when I wanted to get a passport. He found us, Dad continued. Called yesterday. Said if I didn't bring you to him, he'd hurt Emma. Make it slow. The hotel room felt like it was closing in. So you're just going to hand me over? I'm giving you a choice. Run or come with me to meet him. I thought about Emma's terrified whisper, Melissa, help me. Where is she now? Dad's face crumpled. I don't know. He took her after I agreed to bring you. Insurance, he called it. That's when I knew. Dad might have lied about everything else, but his love for Emma was real. And she was in danger because of me. Take me to him. Melissa, no. Take me to him now, or I'm walking out of here and calling every reporter in Phoenix. Let's see how your Michael Torino likes the attention. Dad stared at me for a long moment. Then he nodded. We drove deeper into the desert in Dad's pickup, leaving my Honda in the motel parking lot. The landscape grew more brutal with each mile, harsh rock formations jutting from sandy earth, the only vegetation scrubby bushes that looked half dead. Tell me about him, I said as we drove. This Michael Torino. Dad's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. Your mother was 17 when she met him. He was older, had money, seemed sophisticated. She thought she loved him. What happened? She got pregnant. With you. And then she saw what he really was. Which is? Dad was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, he hurts people for money, Melissa. That's his job. My mouth went dry. You mean like a hitman? Among other things. Your mother found out when she was 6 months pregnant. She tried to leave him. Tried? He broke 3 of her ribs and told her if she ever ran again, he'd kill you the moment you were born. I pressed my face against the cool window glass, fighting nausea. The desert blurred past. How did she get away? She didn't. I did. Dad's voice was barely above a whisper. I was working construction on his house. She hired me to renovate the nursery. I could see the bruises, even though she tried to hide them. And I fell in love with her. So you helped her escape. We planned it for months. I had a friend who could create new identities, not great ones, but good enough. The plan was to wait until after you were born, then disappear. But? Torino figured it out. Caught us together. Beat your mother so badly she went into labor 3 weeks early. I closed my eyes, seeing my mother's face. Sweet, gentle mom who made pancakes on Sunday mornings and sang off-key in the car. How did you get away? Luck. Pure dumb luck. There was a gas explosion at one of Torino's warehouses that same night, killed 2 of his men, destroyed a lot of records. In the chaos, we ran. Changed our names, moved to Oregon. And he never found us? Dad's laugh was hollow. Oh, he found us. Twice. That's why we moved to Colorado when you were 10. Then to Arizona when you were 16. I remember those moves. Dad always called them opportunities. Better jobs, better schools. I'd hated leaving friends behind, but he'd insisted. Now I understood. We weren't moving towards something. We were running. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. Your mother made me promise. She wanted you to have a normal childhood. And Emma? I met her mother 3 years after we moved to Arizona. Janet. She died in a car accident when Emma was 5. Dad's voice softened. Your mother insisted we take her in. Said family isn't just blood. Family isn't just blood. I remembered Mom saying that, though I'd never understood why it mattered. The truck slowed, then turned off the paved road onto a dirt track that stretched toward a cluster of buildings in the distance. My stomach clenched. Melissa, Dad said quietly. Whatever happens in there, I want you to know. You've been my daughter since the day I met you. Nothing changes that. I wanted to say something back, but my throat was too tight. Instead, I reached over and squeezed his hand. The buildings resolved into an old mining operation, corrugated metal structures surrounding a main house, all of it looking abandoned except for the 3 black SUVs parked outside. Dad killed the engine. Stay close to me. Don't run unless I tell you to. And whatever you do, don't let him see that you're scared. We walked toward the house. Each step felt like walking toward my own execution. The desert wind whipped sand into my eyes, making them water. The front door opened before we reached it. A man stepped out, tall, silver-haired, wearing an expensive suit that looked ridiculous in this desolate place. Behind him came 2 others, younger, both carrying guns. Richard, the man said. His voice was smooth, cultured. And this must be Melissa. I felt Dad tense beside me. Let Emma go, Torino. You got what you wanted. Michael Torino, my biological father, smiled. Up close, I could see my own eyes looking back at me. My own stubborn chin. The resemblance was unmistakable and horrible. She's a beautiful girl, Richard. You've done well raising my daughter. I'm not your daughter, I said. The words came out stronger than I felt. Torino's smile widened. DNA says otherwise. But we'll have plenty of time to get acquainted. Where's Emma? Safe. For now. He gestured toward the house. Shall we go inside? We have so much to discuss. The interior was surprisingly well appointed, leather furniture, expensive art on the walls, a full bar in the corner. But it felt like a stage set, something put together to impress rather than to live in. Emma was sitting on a couch in the far corner, flanked by another armed man. She looked tiny and terrified, her blonde hair hanging in her face. When she saw me, she started to stand but the man pushed her back down. Emma. I started toward her, but one of Torino's men grabbed my arm. Easy, Torino said. Let's talk first. Emma's safety depends on how reasonable you're willing to be. Dad stepped forward. You got what you wanted. Let her go. What I wanted. Torino poured himself a drink from the bar, something amber in a crystal glass. What I wanted was my daughter. What I got was 15 years of searching for a child who was stolen from me. Stolen? I couldn't help myself. You mean saved? From you. Those familiar eyes turned cold. Your mother was mentally unstable, Melissa. She filled your head with lies about me. Like what? That you beat her while she was pregnant? The glass paused halfway to his lips. I see Richard's been telling stories. I see you're not denying it. Torino set down his drink and walked toward me. I forced myself not to back away, even when he stopped close enough that I could smell his cologne, something expensive and cloying. Your mother was sick, he said quietly. Paranoid. She imagined threats that didn't exist. The broken ribs were imaginary? An accident. She fell down the stairs. 3 times? His hand moved so fast I didn't see it coming. The slap sent me staggering backward, my cheek exploding in pain. Dad lunged forward, but the 2 gunmen were ready for him. Dad, no? Emma's voice cut through the room. That's enough, Torino said mildly. Melissa, you have 2 choices. Come with me willingly, or watch me kill everyone you care about. Starting with little Emma. I touched my burning cheek, tasting blood. What do you want with me? You're my daughter. My blood. And blood is everything in my business. Your business being murder. My business being family legacy. Structure. Order. He walked back to the bar. Do you know how long I've been building my organization? 30 years. Do you know what happens when a man like me dies without an heir? Understanding crept over me like ice water. You want me to take over. I want you to learn. To understand what real power looks like. I'd rather die first. Torino nodded to one of his men. The gunman grabbed Emma by the hair and pressed his pistol to her temple. Emma whimpered, tears streaming down her face. That can be arranged, Torino said. But let's start with her. My knees went weak. Please. She's just a child. So were you when your mother stole you from me? Did she consider that when she destroyed my family? I looked at Emma, at Dad, at the guns pointed at people I loved. The choice wasn't really a choice at all. If I come with you, I said slowly, you'll let them go? Both of them? You have my word. Your word means nothing. Torino smiled. Then you'll have to trust that keeping them alive ensures your cooperation. I closed my eyes. When I opened them, I was looking at Emma. Sweet Emma, who drew me pictures for my birthday, who called me every week to complain about boys and homework, who looked at me like I could solve any problem. Okay, I whispered. I'll come with you. Dad made a sound like he'd been shot. Melissa, no. It's okay, I told him. It's going to be okay. But even as I said it, I knew it was a lie. Nothing was ever going to be okay again. Torino's men separated us then, Dad and Emma to one room, me to another. They gave me 10 minutes to say goodbye, as Torino put it. Like this was some normal family visit instead of a kidnapping. Emma threw herself into my arms the moment we were alone, sobbing against my shoulder. I'm so sorry, Melissa. He made me call you. He said he'd hurt Dad if I didn't. It's not your fault, I whispered, stroking her hair. None of this is your fault. Dad stood by the window, staring out at the desert. There has to be another way, he said without turning around. There isn't. I pulled back to look at Emma's face, memorizing every freckle. Promise me something, Em. Whatever happens, you're going to be okay. You're going to graduate high school and go to college and become that marine biologist you always talk about. Don't talk like that. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. We'll figure this out. We always do. But we both knew this was different. This wasn't moving to a new city or changing schools. This was goodbye. I love you, I told her. Both of you. Don't ever forget that. Dad finally turned from the window. His eyes were red. Melissa, I should have told you the truth years ago. Should have prepared you. It wouldn't have mattered. He still would have found us. Your mother, Dad's voice cracked. Your mother would never forgive me for this. Mom would understand. She'd want Emma safe. I hugged him tight, breathing in his familiar scent of sawdust and Old Spice. Take care of each other. Then Torino's men were back, pulling me away from the only family I'd ever known. I didn't look back as they led me outside. I couldn't. The black SUV was waiting, engine running. Torino sat in the passenger seat, already making phone calls. Phoenix to Chicago in 4 hours, he was saying. Yes, she's coming willingly. No complications. Chicago. Of course. As far from Arizona as he could get me. I was shoved into the back seat between 2 of his men. The one on my left was massive, arms covered in tattoos. The one on my right looked like an accountant with a gun. As we pulled away from the mining compound, I pressed my face to the window. In the distance, I could see Dad's pickup truck still parked where we'd left it. Were Dad and Emma still alive in there? Or had Torino already broken his promise? They're fine, Torino said, as if reading my thoughts. For now. You said you'd let them go. I said I'd spare their lives. I didn't say anything about letting them go. The SUV bounced over a rut in the dirt road, throwing me against the tattooed man. He shoved me back without looking up from his phone. What does that mean? I asked. It means their insurance. Motivation for you to be cooperative. We reached the paved road and turned north. The mining compound disappeared behind a ridge, taking Dad and Emma with it. Where are you taking them? Somewhere safe. Somewhere you'll never find them if you decide to be difficult. I stared at his profile, looking for some trace of humanity. Some reminder that we shared DNA. But there was nothing. Just cold calculation. You know, I said, I used to wonder about you. What my real father was like. Whether you ever thought about me. I never stopped thinking about you. Did you ever love my mother? For the first time, something flickered across his face. Love is a weakness, Melissa. It makes people do stupid things. Like what? Like throw away everything they've built for a fantasy that can never last. The desert scrolled past outside, miles and miles of nothing. I thought about Emma's voice on the phone, Melissa, help me. I tried to help, and now we were all trapped. Unless. I need to use the bathroom, I said. Torino glanced back at me. You can wait. I can't. I haven't gone since this morning. He sighed and said something to the driver. The SUV slowed and pulled off at a rest stop, just a concrete building and a couple of picnic tables in the middle of nowhere. 2 minutes, the tattooed man said as he got out with me. The rest stop bathroom was disgusting, graffiti on the walls, no soap, a mirror so dirty I could barely see my reflection. But it had what I needed, privacy and a small window. I waited until I heard my guard light a cigarette outside, then quietly slid the window open. It was barely large enough for me to squeeze through, but I managed it, dropping into the sandy dirt behind the building. The SUV was parked on the other side, engine still running. If I could circle around, maybe I could. A hand grabbed my shoulder and spun me around. The tattooed man smiled, showing gold teeth. Going somewhere? He dragged me back to the SUV, where Torino was waiting with an expression of mild disappointment. I'm hurt, Melissa. Here I thought we were starting to understand each other. He nodded to the accountant-looking man, who produced a length of rope. They tied my hands behind my back and my feet together. That should prevent any more detours, Torino said as they loaded me back into the vehicle. The rope was tight enough to cut off circulation. My fingers were already going numb. But worse than the physical discomfort was the crushing realization that I'd blown my only chance at escape. As we pulled back onto the highway, Torino's phone rang. Yes? Are you certain? Both of them? A pause. I see. Yes, that changes things. He hung up and turned to look at me. It seems your father and sister have escaped. My heart leapt. What? Richard always was resourceful. I underestimated him. So they're free? For the moment. But not for long. Torino's smile was like a blade. Which means I need to accelerate our timeline. He made another call. Change of plans. We're making a stop. The stop turned out to be another abandoned building, this one some kind of old factory on the outskirts of a small town whose name I never learned. The SUV pulled around behind the building, out of sight from the road. They cut the ropes around my feet but left my hands tied as they marched me inside. The interior was a maze of rusted machinery and broken windows. Our footsteps echoed in the cavernous space. This is where we part company, Torino announced. My blood turned to ice. What do you mean? I mean your usefulness has reached its limits. He pulled out a gun, sleek, black, professional looking. I had hoped to bring you into the family business gradually. Show you the benefits of cooperation. But now Dad and Emma are free, you don't need me anymore. Oh, I still need you. Just not alive. The factory suddenly felt smaller, the walls pressing in around me. I don't understand. Your father is sentimental. He'll come for you, even knowing it's a trap. And when he does, Torino shrugged. I'll have all three of you exactly where I want you. One of his men produced a cell phone and set it up to record video. The red light blinked at me like a malevolent eye. Smile for the camera, Melissa. You're about to star in a very special message. I backed away until I hit the wall. Nowhere to run with my hands tied. No weapons within reach. Nothing but rust and shadows and the sound of my own ragged breathing. Dad won't come, I said, though I knew it was a lie. He's too smart for that. We'll see. But just in case. Torino raised the gun, pointing it directly at my chest. Any last words for your dear old dad? I thought of all the things I wanted to say. How sorry I was for bringing this down on them. How much I loved them both. How proud I was of Emma for being brave. How grateful I was to Dad for being the father Torino never could be. Instead, I looked straight into the camera and said, this isn't over. Torino laughed. Actually, it is. His fingers started to tighten on the trigger. I closed my eyes and thought of Mom, wondering if I'd see her again in whatever came next. The gunshot was incredibly loud in the enclosed space. But I was still standing. I opened my eyes. Torino was looking down at his chest in confusion, where a dark stain was spreading across his expensive shirt. Behind him, Dad stepped out of the shadows, smoking rifle in his hands. Hello, Michael, Dad said calmly. Torino staggered, then fell to his knees. His own gun clattered across the concrete floor. The two remaining gunmen spun around, reaching for their weapons, but Dad was already moving. What happened next was like watching a movie in fast forward. Dad rolled behind a piece of machinery as bullets sparked off metal around him. I threw myself flat on the floor, hands still tied behind my back, as gunfire erupted overhead. It lasted maybe 30 seconds. When the echoes faded, Dad was standing over two bodies. He walked over to me, rifle casually slung over his shoulder. "You okay?" "How?" I gasped. "How did you find me?" "Emma." Smart girl figured out how to activate the GPS on Torino's phone before they took her. Dad cut the ropes around my wrists with a folding knife. "We've been tracking you for hours." Torino was still alive, propped against a support beam, pressing his hand to the spreading bloodstain. "Richard," he wheezed. "This isn't over." Dad walked over to him. "Yeah, it is. There are others. My organization. They'll come looking. Let them come." Dad's voice was flat, emotionless. "I've been running from you for 15 years, Michael. I'm done running." Torino's eyes found mine. "She's still my blood. Still my daughter." "No," I said, standing up on shaky legs. "I'm Richard Walsh's daughter. I always have been." Something like disappointment flickered across Torino's face. Then his eyes went glassy and he was gone. Dad was already checking the bodies of the other two men, making sure they were no longer a threat. "We need to go," he said. "Police will be here soon, someone must have heard the shots." "What about them?" I gestured at the bodies. "What about them?" "They're criminals who kidnapped my daughter." Dad shouldered his rifle again. "Come on. Emma's waiting in the truck." We walked out into the fading daylight. Dad's pickup was parked behind the building, engine running. Emma sat in the passenger seat, looking pale but determined. "Melissa." She threw herself at me the moment I opened the truck door. "Are you okay? Did they hurt you?" "I'm fine," I said, though I wasn't sure that was true. "How did you two escape?" "Dad had a backup plan," Emma said with obvious pride. "He's been carrying a GPS tracker in his boot for 3 years." Dad climbed into the driver's seat. "Just in case this day ever came. Your mother and I planned for it." As we drove away from the factory, I looked back one more time. Soon the building was just another abandoned shape in the desert. In a few hours, it would be crawling with police. By morning, the bodies would be in the morgue and the story would be in the newspapers. But we'd be long gone by then. "Where are we going?" I asked. "Somewhere safe," Dad said. "I know a place." Emma was curled up between us, her head on my shoulder. "Are we going to have to run again?" Dad considered this. "Maybe. For a while. But Torino was right about one thing: family isn't just blood. And as long as we're together, we can handle whatever comes next." I closed my eyes and let the vibration of the truck lull me towards something that might eventually become sleep. We were alive. We were together. For now, that was enough. But as the miles rolled past and the desert gave way to mountains, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't really over. Torino had mentioned others, his organization, people who might come looking for answers. 3 days later, reading the newspaper in a diner in Oregon, I learned I was right. The headline read, "Arizona crime boss Michael Torino found dead." Below it, in smaller text, "Police seek missing daughter in connection with murders." They found the flip phone I'd used to call 911 from the desert, tracked it back to the old woman whose purse had been stolen 3 towns over. They connected it to Dad's truck being spotted near the factory. They put together a story that was close enough to the truth to be dangerous. Dad folded the newspaper calmly and left a 20 on the table. "Time to go," he said. So we ran again. New names, new lives, new city. Emma enrolled in school under an assumed identity. I got a job teaching at a community college with forged credentials. Dad found work as a carpenter. We thought we were safe. We were wrong. 6 months later, the package arrived on a Tuesday morning with no return address. Inside was a photograph of Emma walking to school, taken from across the street with a telephoto lens. On the back, someone had written in block letters, "We know where you are." I showed it to Dad over breakfast. He studied it for a long moment, then stood up and walked to the kitchen window, looking out at the quiet suburban street where we'd been living under the names Johnson. "How long do you think we have?" I asked. "Not long." Emma came downstairs then, backpack slung over her shoulder, ready for another day of pretending to be someone else. She was good at it now, almost too good. Sometimes I forgot she was only 14. "Morning," she said, grabbing a piece of toast. "You both look weird. What's wrong?" Dad and I exchanged glances. We promised each other no more secrets, no more lies. Emma deserved to know the truth about the world we'd brought her into. "We might have to move again," I said. Emma's face fell, but she nodded. She'd been expecting this. We all had. "How long do I have to say goodbye to my friends?" "You don't," Dad said gently. "We leave tonight." That evening, as we threw our lives into suitcases for the 4th time in 2 years, Emma asked a question I'd been dreading. "Is this ever going to end?" I looked at Dad, hoping he'd have an answer. Something reassuring and fatherly that would make this all seem manageable. Instead, he sat down on Emma's bed and took her hand. I don't know, sweetheart. I wish I did. It was the most honest thing any of us had said in months. Present day. That was 3 years ago. We're still running, still looking over our shoulders, still jumping at shadows. But we're alive. And sometimes, in the quiet moments between fear and flight, I think that might be enough. Emma's 17 now, about to graduate from yet another high school under yet another name. She wants to study marine biology, just like she always dreamed. I've been helping her fill out college applications, all of them far from where we are now. Promise me something, I told her last week as we sat in our latest kitchen in our latest house in our latest city. What? Promise me you'll have the life Mom wanted for us. The normal one. Emma looked up from her homework, calculus, advanced placement chemistry, all the classes that would get her into a good school. What about you? I'll be fine. Will you? She set down her pencil and gave me that look, the one that said she was too old for comfortable lies. Will any of us? Before I could answer, Dad walked in from his workshop, sawdust in his hair, smelling like wood stain and honest work. He kissed the top of Emma's head and looked at the college brochures scattered across the table. How's the search going? Good, Emma said. UCLA has a great marine biology program. California's too close, Dad said automatically. What about that school in Maine? Dad. Emma's voice was patient but firm. I can't live my whole life afraid. And there it was, the thing we'd all been avoiding. Emma was growing up, growing away from the tight circle of protection we built around her. Soon she'd be 18, legally an adult, free to make her own choices about risk and safety and what kind of life was worth living. The thought terrified me. That night, after Emma had gone to bed, I found Dad sitting on the back porch, staring up at stars he couldn't name. We'd lived in too many places to put down roots deep enough for constellations. She's right, he said without looking at me. She can't live like this forever. Neither can we. Maybe it's time. I knew what he meant. We'd talked about it before, in whispers, late at night when the fear was too big to ignore. The final option. The one that meant no more running. We don't even know how many of them are left, I said. Does it matter? As long as there's one, we'll never be safe. I pulled my jacket tighter against the night air. Mom wouldn't have wanted this for us. Your mother wanted a lot of things. She wanted you to have a normal childhood. She wanted to grow old with me. She wanted to see Emma graduate. Dad's voice was rough. Sometimes what we want and what we get are different things. The next morning, I found the newspaper folded on the kitchen table. Dad had circled a small item on page 3, Chicago crime family boss found dead in prison cell. I read it twice before the implications sank in. Anthony Torino, Michael's younger brother, the one who'd taken over operations after Michael's death. Dead of an apparent heart attack at 45. Natural causes? I asked Dad when he came in from the garage. That's what it says. Do you believe it? Dad poured himself coffee from the pot I'd made. I believe in a lot of things I can't prove. Like what? Like justice. Eventually. Over the next few weeks, more names appeared in obituaries across the country. Men with Italian surnames and criminal records, all dying of various natural causes within days of each other. Food poisoning. Car accidents. Heart attacks. Strokes. Someone was cleaning house. The photographs stopped coming. The feeling of being watched faded. Emma started talking about prom and college like they were normal things that normal teenagers got to have. But I couldn't shake the feeling that this was too convenient. Too neat. Dad, I said one morning, finding him reading another obituary with a satisfied expression. What did you do? I protected my family. That's not an answer. He folded the newspaper and looked at me with eyes that had seen too much. Your mother wasn't the only one with secrets, Melissa. I wasn't always a carpenter. The kitchen suddenly felt cold. What were you? Someone who knew how to make problems disappear. I stared at him, this man who'd raised me, loved me, taught me how to drive and balance a checkbook and change a tire. This man who apparently knew how to kill people professionally. The construction work was a cover? The construction work was retirement. Your mother and I, we wanted a quiet life. But some skills. You don't forget them. How many? How many what? How many people did you kill to keep us safe? Dad was quiet for a long moment. Then, all of them. 2 years later, Emma graduated valedictorian from her high school in Maine, the one Dad had suggested, the one far from everything that had threatened us. She gave a speech about resilience and family and the courage to start over. I cried through the whole thing. She's at college now, studying marine biology like she always dreamed. She calls every Sunday from her dorm room, voice bright with possibilities. She has friends. A boyfriend. A future that doesn't include looking over her shoulder. Dad and I stayed in Maine. He opened a legitimate carpentry business, no more aliases, no more cash payments. I teach English at the local high school, my real name on the classroom door for the first time in 5 years. Sometimes tourists ask about my accent, where I'm from originally. I tell them Arizona, which is true enough. I don't mention the desert or the phone call or the old mining camp where I learned that blood doesn't always mean family. But late at night, when the wind howls off the Atlantic and the house settles around us, I think about Torino's last words: this isn't over. Maybe it is. Maybe Dad really did eliminate every threat, every connection, every person who might have wanted revenge for Michael Torino's death. Maybe we're finally safe. Or maybe somewhere out there, someone is still looking. Someone who knew Michael before he became a crime boss. Someone who loved him despite what he was. Someone who spent 3 years planning and waiting and getting closer. Sometimes I dream about that flip phone in the desert, the one that saved my life. In the dreams, it's ringing, and when I answer it, Emma's voice whispers, "Melissa, help me." But Emma's safe now. Hundreds of miles away, surrounded by normal people living normal lives. The nightmares can't touch her there. At least, that's what I tell myself. This morning, I got a package with no return address. Inside was a photograph of Emma walking across her college campus, taken with a telephoto lens. On the back, in familiar block letters, she looks just like her grandfather. I showed it to Dad over breakfast. He studied it for a long moment, then stood up and walked to the kitchen window. "How long do you think we have?" I asked. He was quiet for so long I thought he hadn't heard me. "Then pack light. We leave tonight." "What about Emma?" "What about her?" "We can't just disappear again. She'll worry. She'll be safer not knowing." But even as he said it, I could see the doubt in his eyes. Emma wasn't a child anymore. She had her own life, her own choices. And whoever was hunting us clearly knew that. "Dad," I said quietly, "I think it's time we stopped running." He turned from the window, and I saw something in his face I'd never seen before. Not fear, we'd lived with fear for so long it was like breathing. This was something else. Resignation. "You're right," he said. "It's time to end this." "What do you mean?" "I mean no more running. No more hiding. No more looking over our shoulders." Dad sat down across from me, suddenly looking older than his 57 years. "I mean we're going to find whoever sent that photograph, and we're going to finish what Torino started. We're going to fight. We're going to survive." Outside, the Maine wind picked up, rattling the windows of our house by the sea. Somewhere in the distance, I heard the sound of waves crashing against rocks, patient and relentless and impossible to stop. Just like family. Just like love. Just like the promises we make to protect the people who matter most, no matter what it costs us in the end. I looked at the photograph again, Emma, beautiful and alive and unaware that she was being watched. My sister. My heart. The reason we'd survived everything that came before and everything that was still coming. "Okay," I said. "Let's finish it." Dad nodded and pulled out his phone. I had no idea who he was calling, but from the way his voice changed when someone answered, professional, clipped, dangerous, I knew our quiet life in Maine was about to end. "It's Richard Walsh," he said into the phone. "I need a favor." As he talked, I walked to the window and looked out at the ocean. Somewhere beneath those dark waters were creatures Emma would spend her life studying, things that had survived in the deep places where light couldn't reach, things that knew how to adapt and endure and fight when fighting was the only option left. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number: "Your father can't protect you forever." I showed it to Dad when he finished his call. He read it, deleted it, then handed the phone back to me. "Actually," he said with a smile that would have scared Torino himself, "he can." Epilogue. 5 years later. The wedding was small, just Emma and her fiancé David, Dad and me, and a handful of Emma's college friends who knew her as Emily Johnson and had no idea that she'd once been Emma Walsh, or that her real last name was something else entirely. We held it on the beach in Maine, the same coastline where we'd learned to stop running and start fighting back. Emma looked beautiful in Mom's wedding dress, which we'd somehow managed to save through all the moves and false identities and midnight escapes. Dad walked her down the aisle to the sound of waves on rocks. I stood as her maid of honor, watching my little sister promise to love someone with the same fierce loyalty she'd shown our family through everything. During the reception, as the sun set over the Atlantic, Emma pulled me aside. "I know about the others," she said quietly. "What others?" "The people who came looking for us. The ones who didn't make it back." My blood went cold. "Emma, I'm not afraid," she interrupted. "I'm grateful." "You shouldn't have to be grateful for violence." "No," she agreed. "But I'm grateful that when it came down to choosing between your conscience and my safety, you chose me." I hugged her tight, this brilliant, brave woman who'd grown up too fast in a world that was darker than any child should have to know. "We'll always choose you." "I know." She pulled back and smiled. "But from now on, I get to choose too." That night, as the guests danced under string lights, Dad and I walked along the shoreline. The water was calmer than I'd ever seen it, almost peaceful. "Do you think it's really over?" I asked. I think, Dad said carefully, that some stories don't have endings. They just have pauses. That's not very reassuring. It's honest. In the distance, I could see Emma and David slow dancing, lost in their own world of possibility and promise. Tomorrow they'd fly to Hawaii for their honeymoon. Next month, Emma would start graduate school. Eventually, maybe, there would be grandchildren for Dad to spoil and protect. A normal life. The kind Mom had dreamed of for all of us. But as we walked back toward the lights and music and laughter, I caught a glimpse of movement in the dunes behind the reception. Just a shadow, there and gone so quickly I might have imagined it. I didn't mention it to Dad. Some shadows are just shadows. Others are promises of storms still coming. But tonight, Emma was dancing with the man she loved, surrounded by people who cared about her. Tonight, we were all together and safe and happy. Tonight was enough. Tomorrow, we'd deal with whatever shadows were waiting for us. Together. Always together. Family isn't just blood, after all. It's the choice to keep fighting for each other, no matter how dark the world gets. And we've been making that choice for 7 years now. We'd keep making it for as long as we had to. The end.